Worship is so important to understand the definition. People make fun of me because I always use the term words matter, because people say it's just semantics, and I go, semantics are everything. Words matter. So what is worship? First of all, it's the fundamental purpose for why we are redeemed. That's one of the things that it says in Scripture over and over again, that we were saved so that it would rebound to the glory of God. One of the ways that now I think through worship is in 1 Peter 2, it says that we are a royal priesthood, a chosen people, a chosen nation. Priests in the Old Testament were essentially butchers. Their full-time job was to offer sacrifices. And one of the things that's interesting is that Peter tells every single Christian that they are a part of a royal priesthood. And the question is, well, if in the Old Testament priests offered sacrifices, in the new covenant, what do those who are part of the royal priesthood offer to God? Well, it says in the next verse, you are a royal priesthood so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. The sacrifices that we offer to God are a life of praise and a life of worship. So it's our entire life, and it's not just with our lips. It's not the 4 songs that we sing on a Sunday morning. It's our entire life submitted to God in obedience to the conformity of Jesus Christ for his glory and for the advancement of the gospel. I mean, this is what it says in Romans 12. We already talked about this verse, but do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This is your reasonable response of worship. This is the logical response to 12:1, beseeching us by the mercies of God. So all that Paul covered in the first 11 chapters of Romans, he says that our logical response is a life of worship, and that is submitting our entire life to God's glory, to our obedience to him. And I think too, one of the things I love about that 1 Peter 2 passage, it says that we were saved on purpose with a purpose, so that, it says purpose clause, you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, which means you cannot possibly live a life of worship if you are not a kingdom ambassador to those in the dark. So when we talk about worship, we talk about, well, I want to live a life of obedience. Fundamentally speaking, when Peter gives us a description of how we live a life of worship, it's by living in such a way, not just where our character and our conduct is conformed to Christ, but where we proclaim Christ to those around us. The way we worship is by living on mission so that more and more people are called into God's family, and that rebounds to God's glory. Worshipers want God to get the glory, and the way God is glorified, Jonathan Edwards used to say, the star that shines the brightest in the glory of God is the star of redemption. So people that want to live a life of worship, they need to live in obedience, walk in obedience, to serve other people, but they need to know that they've been called on purpose so that they may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. Worship is far more than songs. It's far more than music, even though it includes that. It's a life dedicated to the glory of God through our conformity to Jesus and the proclamation of who Jesus is to a world that needs to know him.
Well said.